Welcome, everyone, to the Evolutionary Leaders, a laboratory for conscious evolution. We are so honored to be here celebrating World Unity Week and its inspiring theme of a new Earth rising. And we're delighted to see so many programs this week hosted by members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. And let me be clear, we will speak about members of the circle today, but every one of you watching this program is helping to lead the evolution, and we honor all of you. I'm Reverend Deborah Moldow, Director of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle and founder of the Garden of Light. And I'm here with four most distinguished, longtime evolutionary leaders. Diane Marie Williams, co-initiator of the Evolutionary Leaders and founder and president of its mother organization, the Source of Synergy Foundation. Dr. Kurt Johnson, author, scientist, publisher, and coordinator of the Evolutionary Leaders Synergy Circles. Linnea Lombard, co-creator and board chair of New Stories. And David Gershon, co-founder and CEO of the Empowerment Institute and creator of the Peace on Earth game. So welcome to all of our speakers today. And we'll be asking them for their diverse perspectives on the evolutionary leaders and how we as a community are evolving into the future. But I'd like to start with just a few words about what we mean by conscious evolution. This worldview was popularized by beloved futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard, who was among our original members. Barbara said that evolution is ongoing, but that it's always been unconscious in the past. She explained that since we are the first species to be aware of evolution, we are thus empowered to consciously direct its trajectory. Barbara called the planetary crises that we're facing now the greatest wake-up call that the human species has ever had. So the Evolutionary Leaders in Service to Conscious Evolution is a community of outside-the-box visionaries, more than 250 authors, scientists, spiritual leaders, activists, educators, and artists whose passion is to point the way to the next level of consciousness for the human species, one that can turn our current avalanche of crises into a roadmap of opportunities to co-create a future where humans live in harmony with one another and with nature as part of the beautiful living planet we all share. That is our vision of a new Earth rising. So welcome everyone today. And let's take a look at how it all began by hearing first from our wonderful founder, a true visionary, Diane Marie Williams. So Diane is founder and president of the Source of Synergy Foundation, which is an organization committed to consciously synergizing individuals, organizations, and efforts by tapping into the infinite source of the collective potential to serve as a positive force for global transformation. And she was the initiator with Deepak Chopra of one of its main projects, the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. Diane Marie Williams.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's really great to be here with all of you to celebrate this year's World Unity Week with its theme, A New Earth Rising, and we're in day 5, which is focused on cooperation, so it's very appropriate. And I want to give a shout out to all of the amazing strategic cooperators, Ben, Irina, John, Becky, Mark, Peter, and the whole World Unity Week team, all of the presenters and guests for creating a powerful force field of peace through unity and conscious cooperation. And our future truly depends on planetary scale synergistic cooperation and the full activation of our individual and collective purpose. And during these 99 days of peace through unity, we will have the opportunity to make a declaration, a pledge, our sacred word to do something that supports the good of the whole. So almost 17 years ago, I was contemplating on just this. How can I serve the greater good? And I knew that the times when I saw the most progress was when people came together in synergy, and the outcome of that energy always seemed to be stronger than if one acted alone. So I meditated on that and heard the words source and synergy, and understood that I was being called to cultivate with others greater synergy among individuals, organizations, and networks that were committed to accelerating the shift in consciousness. And as synchronicity would have it, soon after that, in 2006, I had a conversation, as Deborah mentioned, with Deepak Chopra, who is an amazing synergizer, and shared with him this intention. And he said, great, let's do it together, and had the first meeting at the Chopra Center in New York. So this blessed collaboration with Deepak and the Chopra Center has been and still is an incredible gift, as it led to our first gathering in December 26th with a powerful group of visionaries that were committed to leveraging their collective potential. And that meeting was the catalyst for the emergence of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, the Source of Synergy Foundation's first initiative. And we have seen during these past 17 years, it's been really a journey of evolution and learning, from primarily being a community of mutual support to now including action areas through synergy circles, collaborative partnerships, and increasing opportunities for impact. So I'd like to take you through a brief slideshow that will give you a better sense of the Evolutionary Leaders' mission and accomplishments, and why we consider it a laboratory for conscious evolution. And many, many thanks to Deborah for putting together this slideshow and for her incredible commitment as director of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. So can we please pull up the slideshow? Great, thank you so much. So if we can go to slide, great. Okay, so in 2006 and 2007, as I just mentioned, the Source of Synergy Foundation and the Chopra Foundation hosted retreats at the Chopra Center in New York for leaders of coalitions, organizations, and networks that wish to collectively create momentum for the new emerging consciousness. And this vision, the vision for a West Coast retreat, came out of that. And 38 evolutionary leaders in the movement of Awakening Conscious gathered at the Chopra Center in Carlsbad, California in July 28 to explore together how to work from a unified field. And they were from a variety of fields, including scientists, business experts, social entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, journalists, and educators. And all participants had experienced success in their individual efforts, and several were renowned authors and teachers who touched millions of lives. And the question was, would it be possible for them to empower the movement by collective intention? So the success of the first retreat led to annual retreats, now we often call them advances, that have been held in retreat centers and at the United Nations in New York, at Ghost Ranch in New Mexico, for a unique co-evolutionary vision quest, and online during the pandemic. And exciting visions have emerged, taking shape into partnerships, books, and programs, co-creating our future in live and virtual events. And over the years, the Evolutionary Leaders Circle has expanded through internal nominations processes to an amazing group of 257 visionaries today. And you can find out more about them by going to evolutionaryleaders.net/evolutionary leaders. You'll see some of them right there. And the founding members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle co-drafted a call to conscious evolution, which has received close to 50,000 signatures to date, and each person who signs onto the call has the opportunity to post what he or she is doing to support conscious evolution. with thousands of inspiring commitments. So we encourage you to go on to that and please sign and let us know what you're doing to support conscious evolution. We also work with Synergy Circles. We have our amazing Synergy Circle coordinator, Kurt Johnson, on with us, and you'll be hearing from him very soon. And this is the action arm of the Evolutionary Leaders, addressing the issues of their choosing from collective impact. And there are currently 22 Synergy Circles, which have offered online programs, magazines, conferences, books, and a presence at the United Nations. So you just see we have some on artists catalyzing evolution. We have conscious business, education, many, many Synergy Circles.
Doesn't make any sense. I'm so confused by this.
Please advance the slide. Please advance the slide. Thanks.
And so this year we have, thank you. So this year we have Evolutionary Partners Network that we just started. We're saying it's a call to common purpose, where we join together in partnership to make a visible conscious ecosystem. And we're forming a network of networks for cooperation at scale. And we share this intention.
I'm so confused by all of this. I'm tired. I'm tired of what it is.
We're sorry, but we have to continue. Almost finished. So this is a pilot project that we are bringing together.
No, we're not almost.
Thank you. Bringing together organizations, movements, and conscious business that are associated with members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. And we currently have 54 members, and we meet monthly, and you can see all of their logos here. And we have an Evolutionary Leaders Source of Synergy Council. We have a newsletter called The Edge that we encourage all of you to sign up for. We do EL community calls, and we recently had a meeting in Sedona called Igniting the Hollow Movement, where we partnered with Purpose Earth to co-host a gathering of visionaries, including 50 members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle in March 2023. And finally, we put out a book called Our Moment of Choice, Evolutionary Visions and Hope for the Future. And we encourage you all to get it if you're so inclined. It's at Amazon.com, and you can also learn more about it at ourmomentofchoice.com. And so our websites are sourceofsynergyfoundation.org and evolutionaryleaders.net. So thank you very much. You can just advance the slides to the end.
Thank you, Diane. I apologize for the slideshow not quite coinciding with your talk.
That's okay.
But thank you so much for giving us that overview of just where this inspiration came from to create this community. And we're so grateful to you and the Source of Synergy Foundation for doing just that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah.
So we're going to hear next from David Gershon. David Gershon is the co-founder and CEO of the Empowerment Institute, and he's an expert on social change. He's the author of 12 books, and he directs the Empowerment Institute Center for Reinventing the Planet, and also the Peace on Earth 2030 game. He's a busy man. Now, David has been a longtime member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, and he's attended every retreat that where we've gathered as a community. And at one retreat, I noticed that he was kind of quiet, and I asked him why. And he said, I see this group as a laboratory, and I am watching. And that thought really stayed with me, and it's the topic of our program today. So I give you David Gershon.
Deborah.
Maybe you can tell us, what is a laboratory for consciousness?
Well, I'm going to try my best. And it's in a laboratory, so it's emergent, of course. So hello, everyone, and great to see so many friends. And thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Ben, for creating such a beautiful platform for us all. So a little bit about my journey with the ELs. It has been about 15 years. I have attended all of the events. They have been remarkable. They've been inspiring, empowering. I've made amazing friendships. I've made tremendous contacts for all the social change work that I'm doing. It has been a wonderful experience to watch this community evolve. And that said, I've always had a longing for it to become something even more wonderful, something even more evolutionary than a networking and personal development and opportunities for beautiful partnerships to emerge. I wanted to see if it could become an experiment in evolution itself. In other words, living into the term evolutionary leader, a word or term we've been debating for some time. What does it mean to be an evolutionary leader? What does leadership mean? So in my definition, it means those who are experimenting on the edge, or what I might call the growing edge, or what Deborah calls the evolutionary edge in her newsletter, of evolution itself. I sometimes define myself as an evolutionary scout, and I'm always looking over the horizon. What is next? What is possible for the human experience? What does it require? And recently, a friend of mine and a dear soul, Emmanuel Kuselman, gave us an opportunity through, as was stated by Diane, to co-create this event called the Holo Movement, which is an emergent idea, and as synchronicity would have it, was just discussed in the previous session. So you already know a lot about where it has evolved. So we were in that moment of its incubation in Sedona. And what I loved about it was an opportunity for the ELs to move into that experimental mode. And it attracted those who are most open to experimenting to this gathering. And so I want to share a little bit about the experiment that we did, or that I observed us doing. As you mentioned, Deborah, just observing. So this is my personal observation. And what I saw as its need, and what I see as humanity's greatest need right now, is to learn how to evolve from single cell organisms, where we do our own thing as organizations or as individuals, into a collective of organizations able to produce transcendent possibilities. Always the aspiration of the ELs, but not fully realized. So here was an opportunity to see what that might look like, whether it was through the Holo movement, or whether it was through learning how to collaborate through that event, or whatever. So we went into it with an experimental mindset, or at least this is the way I chose to engage in it, of emergence, because that is the dominant quality of evolution. And we built what we call the unitive field, and we were trying to empower that and see what emerged. And what emerged was something that we'd seen happening in the ELs for some time. In fact, almost every single retreat or advance, the same thing happened. There was this tension between being and doing. So many members of the ELs wanted us to become something and create some kind of social impact in the world. And others were just really happy to just be in the consciousness and being state. So not surprisingly, that emerged in this experiment. And we also discovered three other things that I think are very powerful for the ELs, and which I think defines to some extent the Holo movement, at least as I've observed it. One was that it was an attractor field. That is to say, it engaged people, it attracted people with a particular mindset, and those are people who want to operate in the unitive consciousness, this unitive space of being and doing. Secondly, it's a collective process. It was a collective process, and I think the ELs are also a collective process of planetary unitive field building. That might not be a term that would be used by everyone, but it's descriptive of what I think occurs or aspires to occur. And the third thing that I noticed from this gathering was it was a generative field. That is, it was able to create things. And one of the things that gets created out of a unitive field-oriented gathering is unitive-oriented cooperative action. And one such action was a project that I had been developing prior to this, and which magnetized 20 EL organizations to it because it represented so actively and clearly what the Moldow movement and the ELs were aspiring to. So it was a natural match. And so 20 organizations came together with the intention to help co-create peace on earth by 2030. This grand aspiration that I've been working on most of my life and is now at the next level. And what I love about this is that it is a growing edge for humanity. It's a growing edge, I believe, for the evolutionary leaders, and it certainly is core to what I see the whole movement aspiring to do. So let me unpack this experiment as I saw it and am seeing it still. So last Saturday, we had the honor of helping launch this World Unity Week with our Peace on Earth opening ceremony. And we had 20 EL organizations that were directly connected with that. And we had 34 organizations in general that are part of this partnership. And we were honoring them, among other things, on that evening. And what we started to see was something very powerful happening. I won't go to that event now. I'll spend a moment on that at the very end, but let me just talk about what is emerging out of these organizations that I think is on the cutting edge. We are moving from single cell organizations into a collective. We have a transcendent vision. We are doing what one of our partners in an EL calls cultural evolution. And one of the places where we see some of this in the natural world is mycelium networks, because they grow one cell at a time, combining with one another into a collective intelligence capable of nourishing large forest ecosystems. So using that as a metaphor, that is what we have to learn how to do as a species. But the question is how? How do we do this? We've been trying for so long and we get stuck in many places. Some call it the green meme, which is the tyranny of the green meme, which is that no one allows anyone to stand out because we're all trying to keep everything so equal that nothing can actually rise. So we have to evolve and we have to figure out how to do that. And so these were the three things I learned with the first Earth Run. We passed the torch of peace around the world in 1986, and we engaged 1 billion people through the media and over 25 million people on the ground. We learned these three things. Each organization, to fully engage and partner, needs to become more than they would be if they did not participate. It can't just be I give because I'm asked, because it's a good thing to do. I have to give and receive, not unlike cells in a body. They have to be able to give and receive. And unless it's mutual, there's no staying power. The second thing is there needs to be a transcendent vision, something big enough that pulls us together, because there's something that we want to all contribute to that seems so obvious, an idea whose time has come, as Victor Hugo calls it. And the third thing we learned, and that was, our moment when we were passing the torch of peace around the world as an antidote to the mutual assured destruction mentality that was so present at that moment, and potentially, a nuclear war between America and Russia. And the third thing, there needs to be a believable plan of execution so everyone is willing to invest their time, talents, and resources. So that's the experiment that we have embarked upon again. And we, I think, are making some progress. We had this beautiful event, and it was an event co-created by 12 different organizations, each representing a part of the story of how we created peace on Earth. It seems that it has captured the imagination of people because the last count as of yesterday morning, this event has gone viral. There's now 14,000 views. So Peace on Earth, a process of co-creating together, telling a story collectively. And we're just at the beginning of learning how to do that. So this wouldn't have happened had we not embarked upon the collaboration experiment seeded by the ELs and the Hollow movement. I feel like we are part of the story of the Hollow movement. I think we are part of the story of the ELs. I think we're part of the story of all the organizations and all the people who are trying to figure out a better way. We think that that's the only way we're going to get the kind of world we want, and we certainly will need it if we're going to get anywhere close to this aspiration of peace on Earth. So what I want to say is that the experiment is alive and well. The ELs have seeded that. The Hollow movement has seeded that. And thank you to Diane for your vision and holding steady for all these years. Thank you to Deborah for being our wonderful guide. Thank you to Ben for hosting this event, another EL. So that's my story about where we are and the current state of the social experiment as I'm observing it, dear Deborah.
Thank you so much, David. And you and your work are a perfect example of what an evolutionary leader is. So it's someone with great vision and great energy and wonderful projects who benefits by coming together with other visionaries to see your work flourish. And so we're delighted to have you and the Peace on Earth game. We wish you and all of us a lot of success with that one. May it be so, and may peace prevail on earth. So thank you, David. And I very much appreciated what you said about the unitive state of both being and doing, and the planetary field that we are all building together. We are doing that, this generative field, as you called it, that creates things. And we are doing that with the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, with the Hollow movement, with Unity Earth, and with all of the people who are engaged in World Unity Week, whether you're watching or you're part of an organization that has a vision to change the world. So as you spoke about how we move from that state of being into doing, that is a perfect segue to our next speaker. Many of you already know Dr. Kurt Johnson. He's the author of countless books and publications. He's a scientist. He's the publisher of Light on Light Media. He's an internet radio host. He's a co-founder of the Interspiritual Movement. And we are so blessed because Kurt serves as coordinator of the synergy circles of the evolutionary leaders. Dr. Kurt Johnson, welcome.
Yeah, Deborah, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody. And actually, when this program was designed, my slot was, what are we up to? And so what I ended up saying was what we're up to now is really in the context of increasing the amount and the impact of what we can do together as a collective in a coherent and coordinated way. That's really direction that we've gone in the last year or so, as David also said. And this is what then has become the synergy circles of the evolutionary leaders, which has been about a 5-year process, but actually really took off in the last 2 years where we could dedicate a group of people to really watering the plants and keeping the fire going and amping it up at every step. So as Deborah said, now we have 22 synergy circles. These are really the areas of engagement of the larger, 250, 300 members of the evolutionary leaders who had been moving toward this question of where is it that we can make a difference and where can we really be more and more impactful and become an effective impact network. So actually, as mentioned, those 22 areas and cover broad areas: ecology, the arts, conscious business, sacred sites, peace, anything that's a global issue, there's a synergy circle that has stepped up from the evolutionary leaders and larger non-ELs who have joined, because it's synergy circles are an open landscape to deal with these areas of engagement. So those are actually the areas of engagement. So then I want to talk a little bit about the kinds of engagement, because the first thing we had to ask ourselves when we had all of these people together who wanted to make a difference and wanted to address this or that thematic passion area, we had to ask, what are the things we can do that might really have an impact? So we realized, that not only can the evolutionary leaders do things as a group, but each of these synergy circles can also do events, they can do initiatives, they can do projects, and they can create media. And we were particularly interested in media because we're always asking the question, as are all of you, how do we get beyond the choir? How do we get beyond just the echo chamber of the transformational movements and into the head and into the heart of the larger public? Otherwise, this thing can't move along at the level of change that we want. So what we started to do then was develop our media for radio, for e-magazines, for video series, and also for books. And initially we were doing this by reaching out to partnerships that we could make. But actually in the last year or two, we ended up saying, hey, from our clusters alone, we can actually create our own assets and we can do this ourselves. So actually now we have a dedicated radio series on Voice America, dedicated to the theme of the Evolutionary Leaders Gold Nautilus Award-winning book, Our Moment of Choice, Evolutionary Visions and Hope for the Future. And that series is called Humanity's Moment of Choice, and it features synergy circles and their passion areas and their activities, month after month. We also have e-magazine potentials that can always be done by us and then posted at isssu.com, which is, is the high-end e-magazine platform in the world. And if you actually, I'll put some links into the chat. If you go there, you'll recognize all kinds of ELs on the covers. You're going to see Deepak, you're going to see Mindahi Bastida, you're going to see lots of people from the ELs, because the magazines are very much about what these synergy circles are doing. The other thing that we have then is series of videos at the Evolutionary Leaders YouTube channel. We actually have 6 synergy circles now that have video series that are thematic series that are posted at the YouTube channel for the Evolutionary Leaders. And so we're really trying to make a difference across all of these areas. And then if you add to that what the Evolutionary Leaders themselves are doing as a collective, it really means that we are emerging as a impact network. And what really was able to spur that to a whole new level, as David and Diane and Deborah also said, was our collaboration with Emmanuel and the elements of the Hollow Movement in the Sedona Igniting the Hollow Movement gathering. This was a place where 80 to 100 of us who'd been dreaming in this direction for years and making these other things happen could come together, and then, as David said, push the bar even farther relative to our planning and our cooperation. And it's been an amazing change since Sedona relative to the level of cooperation, particularly in this context that Ben and John Raymer have been pioneering, this 99 days of radical collaboration, where the answer to everything is yes. And believe me, that 99 days of radical collaboration is very, very real. So the new threshold that we're at now that we're so excited about from the synergy circles, because altogether now there's about 300 of us in the synergy circles, and they're either dedicated to thematic areas of engagement, others are involved in discussions of certain things or in support groups. So we have all kinds of synergy circles, some that are more toward discussion and support, others that are more toward intervention and action. But the threshold that we're so excited about now, post-Sedona, is our chance then to join in being a part of the elements of all these other movements. And they've been mentioned, and I'll even mention them again. But the Holons of the Hollow Movement, the Pods of Peace on Earth by 2030, all of the elements that are in the Upshift movement are partners from Irvin Laszlo's books in Europe, Pro-Social World and all of its projects that are supported by the John Templeton Foundation, Choosing Earth, which is Dwayne Elgin's, Annalos's, Smitsman's project, which is again on a global scale, Earth Rising, 99 Days of Collaboration, World Unity Week, Changing Humanity's Future with his Humanities Teams project. And as someone mentioned in chat, all of our friends at IONS. All of this now is at a new level of collaboration with everybody asking, where is it that we can partner for greater impact? And if you just saw the Holo Movement program, which was just before this, that was the other thing that we were emphasizing there. It's all about collaborating for greater impact in order to move the world in the way that we desperately know that it needs to go. So that's the landscape now. I'm really happy to have had a chance to update people on it. We're so excited. I want to really thank all of the pioneers who've been a part of developing the Synergy Circles, particularly in the last 2 years. There's so many of them now that are self-propelled. They're completely self-governing. They run their own business. I don't even need to be there. And the excitement level is really there for more and more achievement toward the ends that we all share. So thanks for the opportunity to speak about all that. And then back to Deborah.
You are just amazing. How you can hold so many activities at the same time. You're like our master puppeteer, pulling so many strings and helping and encouraging us to come together in so many important ways and to get the word out through all of these books and synergy circles and magazines and other media opportunities. You are amazing, and we're very grateful to have you among the evolutionary leaders. And by the way, you all may have noticed that EL is our shorthand for evolutionary leader, in case you were wondering about that when some of our speakers have used the term. So we have one more speaker that I'm delighted to introduce to you today, and that is Linnea Lombard. Linnea is co-creator and board chair of New Stories. She's also a member of our Emergent Evolutionary Partners Network, representing both New Stories and Great Transition Stories. And I just love to hear Linnea's perspective. And I want to ask her what is pointing to the future of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. Linnea Lombard.
Thank you, Deborah. And so wonderful to be with all of you. I'm somewhat awed by all of my partners already who have spoken. What's clear to me in both what everyone has already said is we are in a pattern that is way larger than what we could call the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. Everyone on this call is already part of that pattern in whatever your own organization is. I started with the Evolutionary Leaders well over 10 years ago. And I think the most exciting thing for me was recognizing the new understanding of evolution itself. And from one of our evolutionary leaders, Bruce Lipton, I'll just read a couple of things. The cell's brain is now recognized to be its skin, the cell membrane, not the DNA, which are the gonads. And this understanding of evolution, where little particles come together and then they form a membrane. And then those little cells come together and form a larger membrane. And then those clumps come together and form a larger membrane. And what you've witnessed over the past 40 minutes is that pattern in motion. And with the ELs, when Diane and Deborah first called the EL group together, we were particles. We weren't actually in a membrane yet, but we formed a membrane where we have over time worked together more and more. Kurt just described all of the ways that the synergy circles are working together, and this field is growing toward what Bruce Lipton at one point called humanity as a superorganism. Like, we are in the process of doing evolution. And currently with the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, our next step is to take all of these different clumps of groups and connect them. One of my favorite authors is Margaret Wheatley, who says to increase the health of any system, connect it to more of itself. So wherever you are in this Zoom room, in your own work, maybe you're seeing this particular segment days, months, years after it's actually being done, you can see where your group can connect more to the groups around it. This is not something just happening at Evolutionary Leaders. The Partnership Circle has started with people in the Evolutionary Leaders Circle who have circles themselves. So those organizations are beginning to connect. We're learning from each other, where we can co-create, where not just our individual selves connect, but our whole organizations can begin to connect. And that's a pattern. I'm seeing it in my own work at New Stories, where we're starting a regenerative communities collaboratory, bringing together people who are working on how to regenerate community, particularly after disaster. And all around me, we did a Thriving Communities Collaboratory several years ago, bringing together the people who are trying to work toward thriving communities. And whatever your work is, who else is doing it? Where can you find them? And how do you begin to learn from each other so that this particular gathering, which is focused on the Evolutionary Leaders Circle and what we've done, we are really exhibiting, I think, the pattern of conscious evolution into ever greater connections and relationships with each other. And it doesn't take much, if you read the news at all, to understand how fragmented so much of our world is right now. So the importance of these connections, of creating the field. The Holo movement is has been ignited, and it's just one name for what's happening everywhere. Kurt just named several different movements because we all get it. The next movement is a movement of movements. So we are in the Evolutionary Leaders Partnership Circle, beginning to contemplate how we bring in all of your organizations to begin to know each other, work together, and move forward together. I think that's enough. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Linnea. And thank you to all of our speakers, to Diane and David and Kurt and Linnea. And I'd like to take a moment now to talk to those of you who are in the Zoom room with us and ask you, if you are a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, would you please raise your hand in the reaction box? And could we have a gallery view now of everybody who's raised their, or bring them on or whatever, so we can see everybody who's raised their hand? Can we do that? There's our beautiful keeper of the flame, Paulette Pipe. And of course, Ben Boulder, the prime organizer of Unity Earth and World Unity Week. And Anne-Marie Verhoeven, who's been working behind the scenes, Scott Katamas, John Raymer. Oh my God, we're all in your magic canoe, John. We have Jean White Eagle and John Pearson. We have Rick Payne, Emmanuel Kunzelman, of course, and so many other beautiful evolutionary leaders are with us now. So thank you so much, those of you who are able to be with us. I also saw Olivia Hansen when I was looking through the gallery before. It's an amazing group of people. And we absolutely love every one of you. And if there's any one of you, you can put your hands down now. But if there's any one of you who would like to say something to add to this conversation, we'd be happy to give you the floor. So would anybody like to say a few words who is a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle? I saw how Ben Bowler had put in the chat how much it meant to him to be a member of the circle. So if Ben, if you would be interested in saying a few words, we'd be happy to hear from you. But we know that you probably got your hands on like the next program and all of that as well. John Raymer. John?
Unmuted.
There you go.
All right. So, we're doing something a little different, building on what we've done in the past, realizing that we need new patterns. So there are missions that are bridging what's happening during World Unity Week with the upcoming Peace Week in September. And David, for example, has put forward the game as a expression of what's possible we could do together in this time. But so has Kurt. Actually, Ben dropped in the chat his whole idea of radical informing and cross-pollinating, and Scott Thomas and what he's doing. This idea of a pattern of uplift is the opportunity, as I see it, as we head in these uncharted waters, and using these new tools to distill next steps and take those next steps, so that it just isn't about 1,000 different offerings that go off into the universe and don't add up. There's a new role for us, and the swarm creativity is kind of a growing edge, as David would say, I think, for us as a community. So we're here to serve. Let's lean into the idea of declaring our missions, our objectives and calls to action, and then see how we radically collaborate to weave them together. For me, the activation of that holo movement, the movement of movements that Emmanuel is talking about, is an example. This could be an example of what that looks like and what it feels like come September, and what we're capable of in terms of envisioning collectively and then manifesting collectively. So we're all in for this summer. This is the best use of my time I could imagine, especially given the urgency. So deep bows to everyone. Come play. Let's figure out what this means to create a pattern of uplift that we all benefit from.
Yes, to the pattern of uplift. Ooh, look at all of me. And yes, to Scott Thomas.
Hey, hello, everybody. Well, two thoughts. First off, it is beautiful seeing how everybody is coming together and collaborating. All the synergy circles that Kurt has helped to organize. And I just wanted to let everybody know that even if you're not part of this particular Evolutionary Leaders group, everyone who hears my voice, whether you're watching us live or the recording, you are an evolutionary leader. We all are, however you want to look at it, drops in the ocean, cells in the body. We all have a beautiful role to play. And what's exciting is that we are finding each other. Like the imaginal cells, as the caterpillar dies, we're the imaginal cells finding each other to create the new paradigm, to create that butterfly. And each and every person is equally important. And I'm really appreciating how, whether it's David Gershon or John Raymer or Ben Bowler or Kurt Johnson, everybody recognizes that there is a true unity of spirit and a true respect for all beings that permeates, whether it's the Sign Network or Peace by 2030. There is a beautiful synergy coming together. So welcome, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for the role you each are playing in this awakening world that we're co-creating.
Thank you so much, Scott. And thank you for all that you're doing to bring us together through the Global Peace Tribe. Such important work, and imagine all of the evolutionary leaders across the planet coming together at the heart, at the head, at the hands, to do the work that needs to be done to truly transform human consciousness. to the next level. I saw Ben Buller's hand up. Is Ben Buller in the house?
Well, I'm here. Thank you, Deborah.
I know it's 4 o'clock in the morning, but you are.
Oh, look, I couldn't say no to you, Deborah, because the Evolutionary Leaders has been just, I can't overstate the impact it's had on me personally and on the work of Unity Earth. And it's really thanks to Kurt Johnson. Meeting Kurt in 2015 changed my life, and joining the Evolutionary Leaders was a major part of that. So, Diane Williams, what you've created together with Deborah Moldow has and is changing the world in such radical and extraordinary ways. And the partnership model that Rianne Eisler and so many people are talking about is so extraordinarily beautifully demonstrated by the community that is the Evolutionary Leaders. So the partnership I have with John Raymer and with Kurt and Deborah, with you and Scott and Emmanuel and et cetera. There's no Kristen. I met Kristen Hoffman at an EL retreat 6 years ago today at COSM, the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. So the Evolutionary Leaders is an extraordinary bounty to humanity, and I'm just deeply grateful and just wanted to come on and share that. And we're only just getting started. The best is yet to come. So thank you, everybody. It's been an extraordinary discussion and a great example of cooperation. And Kurt Johnson, you are the king of cooperation. So we're all learning to catch up. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Ben. Ben, you are another just amazing example of an evolutionary leader who has taken his vision and expanded it outward. And to all of you out there who are evolutionary leaders who are not members of the circle, we wish we could bring you all in. We don't know how to do that yet. So we're so grateful to Unity Earth and the Global Peace Tribe and the Holo Movement for being open platforms where everyone can participate. And truly, we are all in this together. We can all see, we can all feel how much transformation of consciousness is needed. And so we are all, as Barbara Marx Hubbard would have said, in service to conscious evolution, to making this world a better place for all of the beautiful souls who have chosen to be here at this time and into the future, and for all life. So I want to thank everybody today. I want to thank our speakers. I want to thank all the members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. Thank the Source of Synergy Foundation for making this possible, and all the participants in World Unity Week for supporting a new Earth rising. As John Raymer would say, game on. Thank you all so much.
Let's pause for a moment. Let's come into the present.